To the Western Placer Waste Management Authority meeting of the Board of Directors for August 8th, 2024. We are going to call the meeting to order and start with our Pledge of Allegiance led by Director Andriotta.
Oh, thanks. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty for all. I did that last time. Let's get the line.
All right, will the clerk please call the roll?
Director Andriotta,
I'm here.
Director Halden,
Here.
Director Gore,
Here.
Director Alvord,
Here.
Chairman Landon.
Here. Thank you, and would you read the statement of meeting procedures, please?
Welcome to the Western Placer Waste Management Authority meeting of August 8th, 2024. Agendas are available on the table outside this meeting room. If you are here to speak on a matter not on the agenda, you may do so during public comment. The board is not permitted to take action on items addressed under public comment. All items on the agenda will be open for the public to address before final action is taken. Accessibility information is provided on the meeting agenda. Please turn off or put in silent mode all cell phones and other electronic devices. Thank you for your participation.
Great, thank you. We have one small change to the agenda. I'm sorry for the change, but we are going to go to closed session before we go into public comment. So, Council, would you like to read
Thank you,
that?
Chair. Council does recommend that item 9A be heard at this time. And also, there's one other adjustment to the agenda. Council likewise recommends item 6D, Delta, not be heard tonight. So some additional adjustments to those numbers can be brought to your board. That item will return at your next meeting.
Okay, thank
We'll
you.
adjourn to closed session at this time. Thank you.
We are back from closed session. Mr. Sandman, will you read us out?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The board convened in closed session, heard a report from council on one item of potential litigation and provided direction to council. The board took no action on the other item of potential litigation. That concludes the closed session report.
Great, thank you. We're going to move to item 5, public comment. This is a time when persons may address the board regarding items that are not on the agenda. It's requested that comments be brief since the board is not permitted to take any action on items addressed under public comment. So is there anyone who would like to make a comment? Okay. Great, moving on to item 6A, reports from directors. Anything from anyone?
Nope.
It seems like we haven't been here in a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, item 6B, report from General Manager, Mr. Schultz.
Okay, I'm very, very excited to be here, given my first report. I'll keep it brief. About
This is your first
Yeah, I
meeting as
forgot.
general
We should have
Yeah.
had a party.
Welcome.
this is it.
I
This
mean,
is the
you've been with
first.
us for a little while, but I actually
Yes.
was like, huh.
Ah.
Glad you're here, Scott.
So I'm give you a little bit of an update on the transition. I'm about 40 days into the tenure here. Some of the adjectives I have used to people to describe how it's been is exciting, challenging, educational, encouraging. A few others that I'll leave for later. The transition has been going great. I think the support I've gotten from my staff, from the TAG, and from the board has just been amazing. It's really helped me get up and running. All three groups have different perspectives on how to get to the same goal, essentially, which I find refreshing, and it's just been amazing. We have welcomed a new employee, which is great. Anel Concepcion, she's a assistant engineer. So I think we'll get her to a board meeting for an introduction soon. So that's been nice onboarding someone to help with some of the tasks that we have, which are quite a few going on right now. So I'll just give a little bit of an update on the higher priority projects that I've been working on. One is working with our council to get a solicitation for replacement council as soon as possible. So we're working on a draft to get that out there and hopefully get an RFP out and bring someone in, get the RFP in September with someone coming on board before the end of the year. So that should be in your eyes soon. Continue working with the county to transition some of the functions to WAPMA, and that's been a learning experience for me, working with certain parts of the county and what's ours and what. So we're working through that. We're 2 new positions that we're going to be recruiting for. One is a utility service worker, and one is a administrative fiscal officer. And those are bringing some of the duties here, saving WAPMA some money in the long run, taking on some of our responsibilities, especially with the utility service worker. So we're looking forward to getting those in place as soon as possible. Continue the discussions with Sierra College on the potential land sale. So hopefully next month there will be something for the board to information and for the board to review and decide how we move forward with that, if we do. Landfill gas, which we're going to be discussing tonight. RNG project I think is very exciting to me and for WAPMA. I think it's going to bring us forward and open a lot of possibilities for WAPMA. So I'm pretty excited about the potential project there. Continue to work with FCC as we're building out this huge facility, to meet compliance for all the jurisdictions. So we're working through the items as they come up, and hopefully we'll have more on that and keeping things moving forward to getting this facility up and running and showing everybody what it can do. And then also just working on the current landfill and MRF operational contract that's been going on. There's been some liquidated damages due to some inspections. Our staff and FCC staff have been working together to try to reduce those and get them all cleared. So that's actually been going very well. And that's it, really. I just wanted to say how excited I am. I'm lucky to be here with the board and the staff that I have, so I'm looking forward to the future.
Okay, any questions on the general manager's report?
No questions, just, we're just glad to have you, and it appears that you guys have all just kind of come together really well, and like you've been working together forever. I mean, we're not here every day, so maybe not, but that's what it appears to be, so that's very, very nice. And then just really quickly, so the fire from last week or 2 weeks ago, it looks like it did not reach us, right? It stopped right before, so thank God for that. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, and that was commend Will for the exceptional job that he did. It was a very stressful, real-time situation that could have been terrible for us. We had a lot of support and help from the operators, FCC, as far as containing that as best we could. Will really stepped up and took charge and told us what to do, and we're lucky that no one was injured, and the fire went in the direction we would have hoped for.
Good, awesome, thank you, Will.
Great, thank you. And now item 6C, beneficial use of landfill gas.
Yes, so I'm excited about this. I want the board to hear some what this is and what it could do for WATMA and some companies that are out there. So we're going to have some presentations on RNG, which would be pipeline injectable into the grid, and how that could benefit WATMA and everybody, really. So we're going to start out tonight with Laura from Energy 2001, a longtime partner here. So we'll get her going with her presentation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of our board.
But you're gonna need to use the
Microphone.
microphone.
Okay, I will try to do that, but I don't like these.
But we like it.
I
It
know.
helps.
All right, I'll bring it down. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So I think most everyone knows me. I'm Laura. Holly was counselor. Andrea, we really haven't had a chance to get to know each other, but I think I know everyone else. And I just want to do a brief presentation on what I see is energy's position in the future when you're going towards putting the landfill gas to a different beneficial use. So just a quick timeline to say where we've been. Energy first contracted with WATMA back in 1997. And in 2004, I took over the operations and tore it down to a metal building and rebuilt it. So right now what we have out there is 6 engines capable of producing 5 megawatts of electricity with an interconnect. And I look at that as being an asset that can be valuable to WATMA going forward, I'll bet in a different manner. I'm also pointing out in here, and you can look at this later, that it's been since 2019 that PG&E has said that they were willing to take in renewable natural gas, but it wasn't until 2024 that a company is finally just starting to inject into PG&E's lines. 5 years, and I just want to point out that that's 5 years because it's not easy in California. It's very difficult. PG&E under Rule 29 has very high criteria for the renewable natural gas. I'm merely mentioning this because I'm hoping for a smooth transition which will help me, my company, be able to continue smoothly through this transition, moving from changing from landfill gas to natural gas. Going to the next slide. We've been here, and you can look at this later, we've been here for 26 years. I've personally been here for over 20. Just giving you a history, we've been able to produce 600,000 megawatts of electricity. Thank you very much for that opportunity. We've sold over $50 million in electricity and provided the authority with over $6 million in royalties. We've also partnered with Sierra College. We've helped teach students about the landfill and our power plant over at the STEM classes for Rockland Unified School District, and just tried to be a good player and good community support. Some of the key ingredients for success that I see in this, having done this for 20 years, is that, as you know, we've always had an absolutely requirement for compliance. So a lot of what I've been thinking about Energy's future is on the compliance side. We want to have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week operation, having electricity. So this is part of what Energy's hoping to do, is to go from running on landfill gas to running on natural gas. And when we run on natural gas, to be able, while we're going to be replaced by one of these people over here that you're going to hear from after me, I want to replace PG&E. I want to be the primary mover of electricity for our landfill. Just last winter, we had a week, I think it was, that we were down from PG&E, and if Energy hadn't been there to be able to continue to destroy the landfill gas or process it into electricity, we would have had a week's worth of landfill gas backing up in that landfill. Would have been totally unacceptable. If we turn Energy into a natural gas plant, we will have 2 power plants inside one. We can run one. If one's down, we can run the other one, and only in the really unlikely case that both plants are down, we can use PG&E as backup. Next thing is revenues, really important. By keeping Energy around, when you go to having a renewable natural gas plant, you'll be able to not only get the income that these people are going to tell you about, which is a lot, probably $2 to $4 million a year, but on top of that, you'll still get that stream of income of about $500,000 a year from Energy that could go up with future plans that you're making out here to do other items that would need more energy, more electricity, bringing it up to maybe up to $1 million a year in royalties. So that's on top of. So I'm not in competition with the renewable natural gas plant. I'm complementary to it. The last thing I just want to point out again is the importance of having someone with experience. When I think of this, I think of the problem we had with windmills in California. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but when we had all these people throwing up windmills, and all of a sudden, a few years later, they were all bankrupt. And the reason why was there was a lot of investment tax credit money for the windmill companies. And those windmill companies had people who put them up, carried financing on it, took that ITC money, and then turned around, and they weren't profitable, said, we're not running them, because it was very expensive to keep windmills running. But they were able to convince that they were going to be able to make this business doing this, got everyone to buy in, and a lot of people walked away with millions of dollars in their pockets and just left the windmills. I don't want to see that happen here, so I'm really, really asking you. I mean, I can plug into any of these guys, any of them. My plant is going to be providing electricity. They're going to be giving me the gas after the renewable part's been stripped off, and so I can run with any of them. But if they aren't running, you're not making money, and I'm not making money either. So in that way, our goals are aligned, having someone who's capable of doing it, and it's not easy in California. It is difficult. I also just want to point out that we have a plant out there that if it was to go away, it would cost more than $30 million to build another power plant like that plant that's able to do 5 megawatts. It would also cost several $million to bring in a new PG&E interconnect, because that right now that interconnect's owned by Energy 2001. It would also cost, and possibly not even be possible, to get a new permit that would allow you to do the same thing and make the electricity out there. So it's a good idea for us to utilize that asset that has been thoughtfully put in place, and luckily become very valuable to us. By the time you spent all that, there's no way that you could sell, that plant could sell electricity to the landfill at or below PG&E prices. It would just be too much investment to recover. So the next slide. So this is kind of building that circular economy. The whole idea is that WAPMA is putting the waste in place. You're making gas. The gas leaves, it goes to the renewable natural gas plant. They process it, strip off that valuable green portion of it and sell it. And then those same gas molecules can come back to my power plant, also go over to the material recycling facility to run their dryers. And we'll be able to make the electricity that can supply the power to the landfill and make sure that we have 100% operating time, that we don't have these PG&E shutdowns. When everyone else is shut down, we'll just keep running. I wish I could do it for the whole area, but they won't allow me to send it off our property. We have to, the power plant literally has to be on the property it's serving or adjacent to it.
Bummer, you can't just save a whole lot of people money by
No.
usurping PG&E and
Right?
saving tax.
Because
yeah.
we're only using 1/3 of my power plant for all of the needs, including the renewable natural gas plant. I'll have 2/3 left that will be just sitting there. But and wouldn't it be great to Lincoln's neighborhood over there that, oh, they still have the lights on. But unfortunately, that's not going to be able to happen. But the main point is that, again, this is complementary. I am not in competition with them. I want to move. I can't be. I can't afford to give you $2 to $4 million a year. So moving on to the next slide. Oh, no, that one's fine. So this kind of gives you a layout of what it looks like. I know that looks complicated, but the dotted line to PG&E just shows that they're only for backup. The nice thing about keeping the power plant there also is that we can run on natural gas or landfill gas. So if, for whatever reason, the RNG plant is not able to accept that landfill gas to process it, we can go to the second highest value and send it over to the power plant, which is why there's a dotted line. That's only in the rare circumstance that the renewable natural gas facility is unable to utilize the gas. And then third and lastly, only if both of my power plants and the renewable natural gas plant is unable to accept the gas would it go to the flare, because then it's just being destroyed and wasted. So we would only want in the last case. You can see where the new renewable natural gas plant is. They'll be stripping that green portion or the renewable portion of the RINs off it and then injecting it into the line to PG&E. And after that injection point is when those same gas molecules will be coming back. So even though from a paper standpoint, we're not using the renewable natural gas, from a paper standpoint and the value of the renewable, but from a completely realistic standpoint, we will have those actual gas molecules coming back and feeding our power plant. And hopefully the dryers. Okay, the next one. Okay, so in the end, increased revenues. You don't have to pick one income stream. You can have both. And it's a very unique opportunity that not every plant in this situation can do. So it's kind of exciting that you guys are going to be able to take advantage of more than one income stream. If we stayed with just PG&E electricity, you wouldn't ever be able to talk them into paying you a royalty on that. But Energy can pay you a royalty on the electricity that up until now PG&E's been supplying you. You're going to have increased reliability of power. There is just, our run time's already better than PG&E, and we're running on 50% gas and 50% garbage. As soon as we give those engines natural gas, they're going to be, my guys are going to be sitting back not having a lot to do, which is why we want to try to lower costs by cross-training them and making them work at the renewable natural gas plant. I'm sure whoever comes in would like to be able to share those costs of people. We'd be able to share talent. We'll be able to bypass some of the PG&E pipelines, being able to bring those gas molecules back around to the power plant. Some other things that I realized later is that our air permit, there's tail gas from a renewable natural gas plant. There's waste gas when they have to clean out the line. We would be able to use our air permit to satisfy the air pollution control district's requirements for covering those pollutants. Because when we go to a natural gas plant, our amount of emissions are going to go down dramatically. We'll have more room under that permit to also cover other items, which streamlines it and just means that we can get this all done quicker. Another thing is having the interconnect. Normally that could be a few years to get from PG&E. Because we already have the interconnect, we can run the power to them and they don't have to worry about spending millions of dollars and spending that time. Another thought was that we have an existing agreement between Energy and the authority. We might be able to capitalize that to get something done quicker that you can do under a sole source agreement, or a way to get an agreement that's done faster to get everyone in there so that you can get it done before the end of the year and capitalize on those millions of dollars that you can get in ITC money, and also avoid possibly an RFP process that could cost you $250,000. Oh, also, by us being there and using waste heat, we'll be able to increase the amount of ITC money and investment tax credit money that we can get. This I'll just leave for you to look. Lots of funding resources, because we'd be doing combined heat and power, renewable natural gas, and the electricity. There's lots of funding for all of that. Next one. And then just in the end, just look at this, just a bright future. There's so many possibilities. You already have an electric plant, but you're going to be putting in a renewable natural gas plant. We have some solar that we could expand on. We could possibly be doing wind. There's any type of sewer sludge, which I believe you're not receiving right now, but I know as of 2025 you can't accept anymore. But those kinds of organics, there's still the possibility of maybe doing anaerobic digestion with those. Those are things that I always like to explore and keep looking at. And that's about it. One last thing I wanted to mention to you is that Energy was certified as a woman business entity, and I was just told by Marin Clean Energy that it was brought up by the CPUC to the legislature that Energy is the only energy company in the state of California certified as a woman business entity. We are it. So we actually were brought up, and this landfill was brought up to the legislature about that here in California. So we have a little feather in our cap for something. Yeah. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
You mentioned an interconnect fee, or not interconnect fee, an interconnect permit or whatever.
No, I have an interconnect with PG&E right now. And
those are hard to get, right?
Oh, yeah, you can be, well, I think, I don't remember who it was, it might have been Bonnie, said that they've been waiting quite some time for it, and it can take years. And by virtue of me already having it there and it being 5 megawatts, there'll be absolutely no problem supplying power to the renewable natural gas plant. I want to be a good partner with them, is what I'm hoping for.
Okay, other questions?
I just have one.
Yes.
So you've been in contract with the authority for 20 years, you said?
I personally have been here for 20, but Energy's been in contract for 26 years.
And then you said the authority has received over that time $6 million?
Yes,
So does that come out to be about $300,000 a year?
yes.
Okay.
It was smaller in the beginning, it grew over time.
Okay, and you're estimating it can grow to what amount? Because you said it could increase.
Well, right now, we're probably at about $450 a year. And under this plan selling, because believe it or not, my electricity is worth much more being made from natural gas than being renewable and being sold wholesale, because we'd be selling retail. your royalties would be, depending on the size and how much energy the renewable natural gas plant takes, it could be anything from $500,000 to $1 million a year. If we include, that is including, and hopefully would include, the MRF, the landfill offices, the blower flare station. If all of that is included, it could be between $500,000 and $1 million to start, and it can go up from there. I know there's been some thought about bringing on other businesses onto the landfill site, and if we supplied them with the power too, then those royalties would increase. Another way for the royalties to increase is that California Independent System Operators likes to have what they call peaker plants, plants that are able to come on at the last minute to supply energy, and they pay a lot more for that electricity. Because I'm using natural gas, I can't sell it as low as I'm doing right now with renewable, but we could bid into the grid at, say, $250 a megawatt, and then any time they want to they say we don't have enough electricity, which happens every year, they would call us in the day-ahead market and say, we need you to turn your engines on, we're going to buy it. And then we'll fluctuate and go from $250, it can go up to $1,000, $1,500 a megawatt. So I don't really, I mean, I could go back and do an analysis to try to determine how much money that would be. But as I stand here right now, I have not done that, and I don't know. But that would be on top of that.
Thanks.
Okay, other questions right now?
Just, how do you arrive at what the royalty should be?
The royalty to
Watma.
Watma? Well, we could just stay under the same royalty agreement that we have right now, which would
I
pretty
mean,
much,
help me out, like.
about 16%.
Okay, but like, let's imagine, I haven't
Yes.
looked at your tax returns. Let's imagine you were making, $4 million a year.
Oh, wouldn't I like that?
And we were getting 400,000. Like, I just
Yeah.
wonder, do we get the same amount, you and I, or how
Oh,
does
you
this
mean
work?
as far as the net profit?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I'm happy to share that and figure that out. I have to say, I don't know. A lot of that's going to depend on what I have to pay for the natural gas. But if I work out an agreement with, this is why a partnership between myself and one of the renewable natural gas developers would be great, because if we can make an agreement for what I'm buying that gas at, then I have a fixed price on gas, and I can tell you this is my fixed cost, and then we can determine what the profitability would be. I know what it costs to run the plant. I know what it costs to take care of the engines, but I don't know what the cost of the gas. It's fairly volatile. Natural gas, but if I can work out an agreement with whoever ends up being the renewable natural gas plant, I can possibly fix that price, which would then be able to let me say, this is how much money I make, this is what it looks like.
Okay, thanks.
That's probably one of the things is that I'd like to have, if possible, if we could have the next few weeks to work with staff to say, what can we work out here so that we can find the best combination between myself or between energy and a renewable natural gas plant. What would that look like? How can we form it to see if there's a best way that might fast track it so we can get everything done before the end of the year and deliver the most money?
And so I'm just gonna really boil it down simply, Laura. So what I hear you saying is there's an opportunity to do RNGs, and your company can't do that. A different company would do that. Your proposal, though, is to, instead of taking, your proposal would be then, instead of taking the current gas, taking natural gas and creating energy, and then the renewable gas plant would create additional, they would create RNGs, which would create basically two revenue
Correct.
streams for the WAPNA.
Correct.
Okay.
And it would be great, again, if we could, I don't know if someone can make a motion for it, but if we could have a couple of weeks, if you had direction for staff, for us to all work together to figure out what renewable natural gas plant would work the best, and if us working together that we can figure out a fast track system to get it done in time to take advantage of the investment tax credits.
Well, that brings up another question. Have you spoken to any of the other companies that are wanting to do that?
I've spoken to all of them, along with about 15 more that aren't in this room. I've actually been looking at this for 3 years.
Okay.
If I could clarify something, Laura, it was a great presentation, but staff has not determined what developer would be used for an RNG facility by any means at all.
We're clear about that.
Correct.
Yes,
Okay,
we're
thank you.
clear. Yeah, no worries, no worries.
I'm sorry if I misled you in any way.
We'd get a lot fewer calls if you had.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank
And,
you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Chris, from WAGA, yeah, welcome to come on up. Thank you.
Thank you for having me
Will you
today.
move the microphone up just a little bit since you're a little bit taller than she is?
There you go. All right.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. My name's Chris Hiller. I'm a project development director here for the Western region of the United States for WAGA Energy. I've been in renewable energy since 2001, and I really am excited to be here. So you guys have a tremendous opportunity. I ran some quick calculations, and the amount of CO2 that would be offset annually from your landfill is the equivalent of about 40 million gallons of gasoline per year. So that's a tremendous amount of CO2. So the way that works is essentially CO2 that gets taken out of the ground for fossil fuels is now replaced with the carbon cycle that's here and is not adding to the carbon in the atmosphere. So it's a very exciting project. So we can go to the next slide. So WAGA Energy, we are a French company. We are publicly traded in the European Stock Exchange. We have offices in US, Canada, Spain, UK, and Italy. We're also developing in Central America and South America. We are the inventors of a WAGA box. So out of all the companies that you could potentially talk to about renewable natural gas, we are the only ones who are really a manufacturer as well as a developer, builder, owner, operator. We have 26 WAGA boxes in operation around the world. 11 more are under construction. We have 200 landfill gas experts on staff. I also think that's unique. We don't do anything else because of our patents. We solely focus on landfills, so we don't look at cellulosic or other forms of energy or other forms of RNG. It's really focused on landfills. And obviously, safety of our employees and partners, as well as helping you with your compliance, is a paramount thing for us. All right, we can go to the next slide. So these are our North American projects. If I were to include all the projects in other places, it would be multiple slides. So this is just the United States. The green, or US and Canada, the green check marks, you'll see the 5 up on the top there. Those are operating facilities. The other ones are in construction at the moment. The one that I would like to point out is Steuben in Bath, New York. Speaking about PG&E's compliance for what type of gas needs to be injected into the pipeline is very difficult. And so that plant at 1100 SCFM, we believe, is the only one in North America at that size that is producing roughly 99.8% pure methane at over 1,000 BTU, which if you were in the industry, you'd be like, wow, that's amazing. But it probably doesn't mean anything to you. But essentially, the New York spec is very similar to the California spec for pipeline injectable projects. And it's very difficult to get a pipeline to meet the specs at projects between 1,000 and 3,000 SCFM. We go to the next slide. So the reason that it's difficult to upgrade your gas is because your gas is fluctuating. Your gas is never stagnant. Your landfill is a living, breathing organism, and as the bacteria decide to be more active one day versus another day because of atmospheric pressure, your gas consistency is going to change. And so the chart over there on the right really shows nitrogen, oxygen, CO2, and methane from 10 landfills in the United States. But if you look on the chart below, you'll see that the nitrogen concentration jumps around quite a bit from day to day. So when you are working with a very large landfill, let's say 4,000, 5,000, 7,000 SCFM, you can deal with that by tuning the well field. And essentially, you would do the same thing, but on a smaller scale, on a small landfill or a medium-sized landfill, you don't have the economies of scale. So
Where are we?
you guys are kind of in that small, medium
Okay.
size. You're 3,000, right now you're 2,000 SCFM, but I'll get into more details on that in a minute. So we go to the next slide. So this is why we invented the Wagga Box. So essentially, if you go to the EPA database for various technologies to upgrade landfill gas, most technologies use what's called legacy technologies, which is something I don't expect you to understand, but it's PSAs and membranes, and they typically max out somewhere between 12 and 14% nitrogen. So on a small to mid-size landfill, what happens on, let's say you go out to bid to the market to us, somebody like us, and you essentially say, our landfill produces 52% methane at 11% nitrogen, and you give us these figures on average, right? But the problem happens is that your landfill isn't average. No landfill is average, and the gas is constantly fluctuating. So what ends up happening is when your methane level drops, typically your nitrogen is going to increase the most. And what ends up happening is you have to tune out the flows from the well field. And when you tune out the flow from the well field, you basically are reducing the amount of gas that's being processed. You're reducing the amount of energy content that you're able to sell to the grid, and therefore you're losing royalty. Laura is also not going to be happy in that circumstance because she's going to be losing electricity that we would like to be consuming during that time. So our patented technology can handle up to 30% nitrogen by using cryogenic distillation. So rather than using membranes and filtration to separate out the molecules of gas, we use the freezing point of the gas. So we cool it down in a cryogenic chamber using liquid ammonia, or how do we say liquid ammonia? Liquid nitrogen. But essentially, that freezes the gas. The CH4 falls out as a liquid. The oxygen and nitrogen remain as gases, which can easily be separated. And so you'll see legacy technology really drops off a cliff as the gas is not optimized. So you go to the next slide. So what we propose is a very simple structure. It lines up exactly with what Laura had discussed there. WAPMA we would execute a gas right and lease agreement, and essentially we would sell the royalties back to you. We would have a gas interconnect with PG&E, the electric PPA with Energy 2001, and we would have a combination of a fixed offtake as well as a RIN offtake. I'll get into that in the next slide. So I have one last slide here. I'm trying to keep this brief for you. Yeah, we would assume a project size of a Wagga Box 3000. Ideally, we would like to be running at somewhere between 2,800 and 3,000 SCFM. Talking with your staff, that could work, but, you know, we also don't want to pull too hard on the landfill and introduce oxygen or have the water, you know, come up too high so that we can't capture that much gas. So there definitely is a lot of work that it would be a partnership between us and the landfill. We would have to really work to understand the balance of, you know, we want to accept as much gas that you can send us as possible because, again, we can handle all kinds of gas. But you also don't want to be running the landfill at really high nitrogen levels and really low quality methane. So there's a balance there. We would, in PG&E territory, we would include a deoxo. We are a fairly conservative organization. We believe that you can install and connect to the PG&E pipeline without spending the extra money for the deoxo, but in the event that the oxygen limit was too high, we would have to purge the lines, the system would be down, you'd be losing royalties, so we would pay the extra money up front to ensure that that wouldn't happen. And so, you know, when I think the main purpose of this slide is just to really say, when you're comparing companies and royalties in a structure like what we're proposing to do, is very difficult to compare apples to apples. Because as an authority, you'll see, here's a royalty number, but over time, is that the number that you're really going to receive? And that's very hard to figure out based off of the landfill gas. If we're just given one number, here's the landfill gas, this is what it averages, then that's not your actual royalty number because your landfill gas is fluctuating. So it's a very difficult thing to do. What I would suggest and what we would love is that the authority would say, okay, you know, in order to put a plant in here, whoever puts the plant in here has to be able to accept all of our gas, no matter the quality of the gas, no matter what it is. And that could be, for us, that could be up to as much as 30% nitrogen, but you know, realistically, your staff probably doesn't want to run at 30% nitrogen, nor would we recommend it, so I put 20% in there. But just that one number and that one phrase essentially means that our technology is really the only one that can do that. So we'd love to work in a partnership with you as well as Energy 2001 and explore that further. And appreciate your time and letting me speak. And does anyone have any questions or?
Okay, any questions?
Yeah, I have one. A couple slides back, you had you had a little graphic for, it says interconnect with PG&E. So Laura just said a minute ago that she already has that and it could take years to get that. Do you already have that, or if you partner with her, you wouldn't need that?
She has the electric interconnect. Whoever puts the gas RNG facility on the property has to get a gas interconnect with PG&E. So that process is, you know, 2 years or so, no matter what. So
Okay.
That's a separate
Gotcha.
interconnection.
Okay, thanks.
I was curious, you said the staff doesn't want to run at 30% nitrogen, and you recommended 20%. Why? I'm just trying to catch up on that.
Yeah, well, when you pull too hard on the landfill, you're introducing ambient air. Ambient air is mainly comprised of nitrogen, but also oxygen. So when you are running at 30% nitrogen, that means that you're probably running at 3% O2, and that's, you know, methane and O2 are two things that we don't want to coexist. So that's why most of your landfill is in anaerobic digestion, which is the lack of oxygen, so that we don't present an unsafe situation and have a fire or combustion inside
That's what I was
your cell.
wondering. I was trying to figure out if that, okay.
Yes. Yep.
Other questions?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I didn't see California on there. Do you have a California?
We are currently working with I was told that I could say this with G2 and Recology at two very close landfills to here. They're both within about an hour drive. They granted me permission to mention those projects because if we were to work on this site, then we would be able to share spare parts, technicians, we'd be able to cut operating costs between the three facilities, so.
So you're in the process on 2 California sites?
We're in the process of 4 California sites.
Okay.
2 of them are your neighbors, so.
I'm sorry, 2 of them are,
Our neighbors.
Your neighbors, your
Within an
neighbors.
okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, well, I'll just follow. Are they 4 operational or 4 in the works?
We are in the process of contracting right now.
Okay, so they're not operational.
They're not operational,
Okay,
no.
thanks.
Yeah,
Do you know what your timeline is on those?
yeah. I mean, operational is probably a few years out, I mean, based on PG&E's timeline. But we do have that project in New York, which is operational and is a very impressive plant. Plus, the plants that we're doing here locally are also the same exact model with Laura. So G2 is essentially providing electricity to each one of those landfills. So it'd be the exact same structure as what we're proposing here as well.
I just have one question, just to give me a sense of how much money are we talking about that would ultimately benefit the authority? I mean, just approximate.
Well, you know, I think it's a very with our competitors here, it's kind of a unique situation to be presenting in front of you. But I would say if you were at 2,000 SCFM with 52%, 51% methane, which is what you currently have, you know, you're going to be in that, you know, maybe $2 million zone of royalty per year. But if we could increase the flows and we can accept higher nitrogen, we could boost that to 3 million and higher potentially. So those are kind of, you know, you're somewhere in that range.
Well, that's
the-
just helpful to know what we're talking about, right? You know, we've been talking about having RNGs, but it's like, what does that mean? That means ultimately a decent amount of money for our ratepayers. So that's just helpful. And then you had said the New York site. I mean, my understanding in PG&E isn't so easy, and we have. It's been 4 or 5 years since PG&E said that they would take natural RNG into their pipeline, but maybe our staff know. Are there any California sites that actually are doing that? I mean, it's been 5 years, but are there California sites
To
that
my
are
knowledge,
doing that?
there's one.
There's one. Okay,
Right.
so there's a reason it's taken, like, there's a reason Laura hasn't done it, because even though it's been allowed, it is not easy to do this, because PG&E's requirements are more stringent probably than any other place in the country. Would
Well,
that be
my guess is
correct?
Laura doesn't do natural gas.
No, I understand that. But there was a question about, well, you've been talking about it, why, I mean, hasn't it happened? Because the PG&E regulations and requirements are so stringent that companies haven't been able to get to the place of actually making this work in the state of California.
Yeah, I've always been in the impression it's yes, okay, we'll do it, and here's our very strict requirements.
Right, yeah. So that I was trying to understand that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, because we have one solution, essentially, we continue to refine that one solution over and over and over again. And the facility that's operating in New York does meet California PG&E spec. So as far as we know, that's the only one in the country under 3,000 SCFM that's meeting PG&E spec. So we feel very confident that we can do that. Yeah, we're working in California on four other sites. So we'd love to include you guys and work together.
I have one question.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So can we go back to the slides? And it would have been good to get a printout of your presentation because
Oh.
I'm sitting here, I can't see anything.
Okay, sorry.
Actually go back to that. So you guys are worldwide.
Yes.
Okay. So we sometimes get contractors who've operated all over the world and tell us they can do things in California. But you haven't done anything in California. You haven't executed anything yet, right?
Yeah, we are moving from Europe west, which is
Okay.
why they hired me, because I've been in California my whole career.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we hired you, would you tell us, ooh, California is really much harder than I thought it was going to be?
No.
Okay, thank
No.
you.
Yeah,
Thanks. That's all I need.
that's all you need to know.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, we definitely would not say that.
Okay, I have a question on the tax credit. Is there a deadline, if you were to get the tax credit, is there a deadline for completion of the project in order for you to keep that?
Yeah, so currently the tax credit, in order to qualify it, the only available means that's reasonable right now is through Safe Harbor. So we would have to procure 5% of the equipment. We'd have to take possession of that equipment prior to the end of this year. Treasury has not given guidance yet. They're expected to give guidance sometime next month on if those rules are going to change. And then once we have that in place, I believe we have up to 4 years to get the project commissioned and operational.
Okay. Will that be a problem if, I mean, this would be a question for anyone who comes forward with proposals, but if it takes 5 years for PG&E, if it happens to take 5 years, then what would happen?
So our offer to you right now, we think that ITC is fairly speculative. So if we were to get ITC, we would just propose that we would split it with you. But the amount of royalties that I shared previously did not include the ITC. So a project of this scope would probably generate somewhere between $4 and $5 million for WAPMA if we were to be able to secure the ITC through procuring equipment. Again, we're the manufacturer, so who better to talk to about equipment procurement than the manufacturer? So, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions?
Oh, thanks.
Okay.
Okay,
Chris.
great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're looking forward to Corey and Jeff. All right, Red Tail.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Corey Holsap. I'm the co-founder of Red Tail Renewables. Just waiting for the slides to pop up here now. We can go forward to the agenda. My purpose here today, I'm just going to give you a kind of an overview of what we're seeing in the RNG industry today. Kind of give you some details about your landfill, which you probably already know most of them, but also some details about your gas spec and potential offtake strategy and interconnection. And then I'll probably put my sales hat on and give you a little pitch on why Red Tail Renewables. And we can go to the next slide here. Right now, I think we're all aligned here, but RNG is the most widely used beneficial reuse in the landfill natural gas industry. There's probably approximately 200 projects in construction or completely developed at this time. The revenue from these facilities, as you just heard, the revenue share available to landfill partners is 5 to 10 times, what it could be from an electricity project. And again, it's, very environmentally friendly as you're removing diesel gallon equivalent gallons of fuel from the road. That's very impactful, to the environment. I'd say one common theme in the industry that we've seen are project delays. Some of the large developers with very large pipelines of projects bite off a little bit more than they can chew and make some promises that they are struggling to meet, and so they're having problems completing those projects on time and on budget. There's a lack of visibility from them and a utility interconnection, which we just heard. Interconnection is a challenge in some of these projects. From a commodity pricing perspective, commodity pricing has never been this high in the industry, which is very beneficial. It's actually an opportune time to contract up on your offtake, given how high commodity pricing is right now. And then, as we are well aware, the investment tax credit is expiring at the end of this year. You know, that was put in place as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, and it provides up to a 50% investment tax credit on eligible CapEx for projects. This project would probably be in the 30 to 40% range, depending on a couple factors, but it's not an energy community, which is the additional 10%. We can go forward a slide there. You guys know that's your beautiful landfill there. Founded in 1979, about 11 million tons of waste in place, design capacity for 24 million tons. Your average SCFM for this landfill is 1724. That's what it's been over the past year. Your methane content's right at 50%. CO2 content's at 38%, and your oxygen content is at 0.8%. Very typical landfill biogas characteristics there. There's nothing outstanding there that looks off there. 1724 again is your SCFM. I think it's important to note, you know, with the implementation of the MRF that you guys have here, there is going to be quite a bit of MSW going to the MRF, which is going to impact your SCFM estimate going forward. You're not going to be putting as much municipal solid waste into the landfill, and so that gas curve, I think it'd be conservative to say, a conservative estimate to say that gas curve probably won't increase as much as it might at another landfill that doesn't have a MRF in place. Other landfills you might see, depending on how much tonnage they're bringing in on an annual basis, you might see a 2 or 3 or 4% increase in your SCFM per year. Here, I don't know if that will be the case, just because of the impact of the MRF and trying to divert, I don't know the exact goal, 70 or 80% of the MSW from the landfill itself.
Thank you to the state of California.
Yeah. So I think, you know, that's just, you know, some context. We estimate, based on 1,724 SCFM, this landfill would generate about 438,000 MMBTU per year, based on just kind of industry standard uptime, methane recapture, et cetera.
What does that mean? Sorry, I don't know what that MMBTU means.
It's just basically a unit of natural gas. That's
Okay.
what it sells for in the spot market. Typically, natural gas today sell, you know, your typical natural gas at like what we call Henry Hub would sell for, I don't know what the spot price is today, $3 per MMBTU roughly.
Okay.
Yeah. We can go to the next slide. You know, I think one of the most important things about, we believe at Redtail, one of the most important things about a project is revenue, obviously. That's how the authority is paid. And so we prioritize revenue generation really above a lot of activities at Redtail. And that looks like, you know, takes two parts. There's two markets, really. We get more detail than that, but there are two markets. One's the transportation market, which is the one that we all heard about, the D3 RINs and renewable fuel standard. You know, that the spot price, that's a floating rate market. So the spot price in the D3 RIN market today is $3.40 per RIN, which you multiply that by 11.727, and you get to, you know, somewhere between $40 and $45 per MMBTU in the merchant market today. But again, that's floating, and it fluctuates, and it's been down lower than, you know, $2, even $1 in the recent past. And then there's another market, which is the voluntary market, and that's where we sell to utilities or large Fortune 500 corporations with investment grade balance sheets. Our team prioritizes, you know, going to these counterparties. You know, we have a team, Jeff on our team, he's from Waste Management. Waste Management's the largest landfill RNG producer in the world. He's sold more RNG than anyone else in the country. And so we have direct relationships, and we avoid the use of brokers to bring in the revenue for our projects, and that ultimately improves the revenue share to the authority.
If I could interrupt for a sec, I've been told that we have about 5 minutes before that system has to reboot.
Okay.
I don't want to speed
Yeah.
you up or cut
That's-
you off. I mean, we can.
I'm good, yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully it won't take
Do you
me
have
more than
another
5
computer
minutes,
to-
yeah. We can go to the next slide, yeah, and I've got the slides here too, so. This is just a simple chart that kind of shows you, hey, if you wanted to do full merchant offtake versus completely fixed offtake, the revenue you generate per MMBTU is $30 roughly, and going down to $21 as your merchant offtake decreases. But again, your revenue assurance increases or improves the further you move to the right on that chart. We
Were the
haven't,
dark colors basically paper?
the darker color, the darkest color green, that's the merchant risk. That would be like the merchant pricing. So if you went 100% D3 RINs, you'd be receiving about $30, or the project itself, I guess that's $38 per MMBTU at today's commodity pricing. And then the further right you go, and if you're sharing a revenue share, let's say 15 or 20%, you're close to $7 or $8 per MMBTU. But again, that's floating rate, right? And the further right you go, if you went fully fixed for 10 years, your revenues in the low 20s and, $23. So 20 times 20%, you're looking at $4 to $5 per MMBTU in that market. But again, that's a, guaranteed payment versus a merchant or market risk payment. We haven't engaged with PG&E on this project. They are interested. PG&E does have a RNG program in place. We've talked with them several times about other projects in California, and they are willing to work with us to both bring electricity to the site if needed. Although if the Energy 2001 option is more economical and uptime is assured, we can absolutely go that pathway as where we're very open to the electricity option at the site. We just want to ensure that the authority and the ratepayers are protected, and the authority is getting the highest revenue share payment it can at the end of the day.
Have you guys spoken to Energy 2021 yet? Have you guys had a conversation with Laura?
We have signed an NDA with Laura, yes.
Okay.
We can go to the next slide. So here's where I'll put my sales hat on a little bit. Our team, came out of Waste Management, Kinder Morgan, Kinetrix, which was sold to Kinder Morgan, Boston Consulting Group. We've put about $1 billion into the RNG industry. We've developed, several dozen projects. We've sold, 10 BCF of gas into the market. So we were really founded out of Kinder Morgan's RNG team. So a Fortune 500 company based out of Texas, if you're unfamiliar, large RNG developer. We were frustrated with the development timelines at the large company. There was a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of legal approvals that slowed things up. And so we decided that we'd like to start our own company so that we could look our landfill partners in the eye and say, this is the timeline and we can stick to it. And that's really why we founded Redtail. The next slide. This was the first project that we did for Kinetrix Energy. This was the largest RNG facility in Indiana. This is a 4,000 SCFM facility. So this facility, again, is probably be closer to 2,000 unless we could understand the gas flows a little bit better. This was completed on time and on budget within 15 months. All the offtake was to UPS and to the D3 RIN market. This was a great project. We can go to the next slide. The next three projects we did were for a co-op based in Indiana called Hoosier Energy, and they owned 3 landfill gas to electric projects that were on Waste Management landfills, Waste Management owned landfills. And so we went in and negotiated a 3-party agreement between Waste Management and the co-op to put an RNG facility on site, and we split the revenue share between the co-op and Waste Management, and the revenue share was worth it to both parties. We called it the split the baby strategy. We kind of split the baby on the revenue share and gave each of them half, and they were both very happy with the outcome. Those are all operational today, and those were all between 3,000 and 6,000 SCFM, so again, a bit bigger than the 2,000 SCFM facility here. And the other thing was it was highlighted at Waste Management's Investor Day, which was great. Final slide here, so I'll be quick. Not that I need to be quick, but there we go.
Yes, you do. That's awful, sorry.
That's all right. I can voice it over, and I've got it on my phone here. Again, I said, we've
Chair, we would need to pause until the system is rebooted.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, it's not your.
It's not your fault.
We record. we record our sessions.
Oh,
so-
gotcha, yeah.
Oh.
Is this like a?
And we are back, and would you
Sure.
like to finish up your comment?
Chair, if I could,
Just kidding.
I would like the record to reflect that the meeting is recommenced at 7:35 PM.
Thank you. Now, would you like to finish up your comments?
Yes. You know, at the end of the day, I think, you know, put my sales hat on, why Red Tail? You know, again, revenue, you know, leads to the success of these projects. We have the best downstream marketing team, I believe, in the RNG industry and the most experienced. Our incentives are aligned with the authority. You know, we founded this company. We're putting our own personal capital on the line. If the authority doesn't make money, we're not going to make money at the end of the day, and I think that's important to have incentives aligned. You know, we have a very transparent development timeline. We're not going to overpromise and underdeliver. You know, what we say is going to happen at the end of the day. We have a very experienced and agile team. You know, we've worked with a team that's built, operated, or maintained dozens of RNG projects at the end of the day. And if something goes wrong, these projects are, like we said, they don't operate by themselves. And so you will have our phone numbers to call at the end of the day to ask how things are going versus, you know, a corporate employee who is not incentivized, you know, in the right way to operate the plant, or will not wake up at 2 a.m. to come over and check things out and see what's happening. And then, you know, we also use, I think, the most proven equipment in the industry. This is industry standard equipment that's got over 100 installations in the industry. There's no surprises. There's nothing proprietary or, you know, secret to it at the end of the day. There are multiple people that can repair it. Multiple people can work on it. And yeah, I would say that would be the selling points.
Okay,
Any questions?
questions?
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions right now?
I got a question. Your team, a lot of experience, but the company's relatively new. If you did a little history on us, we have long-term relationships where people never leave, our contractors never leave for the most part. And so we get kind of, you know, we know who we're dealing with over long term. How would we know? I mean, you know, like you guys could sell the contract or move along or do something else. I mean, just, you know, this is kind of a relationship for us, and we'll definitely be here, but how would we know you would be here?
Well, I would say any developer could sell the project, you know, that you use, which is, you know, just something that to be aware of. I think we founded Red Tail because we were passionate about the landfill RNG industry itself. We found it to be long-term players.
That sounds funny, you know, but so.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, it provides a lot of environmental benefits. You know, we're passionate about that. You know, and we don't have any intent to flip a contract or anything like that. There's, you know, and you know, we like this industry. We want to be long-term partners. Yeah, I think that's all I can say is, you know.
How about, I'll ask you the same question I asked, you know, you guys are obviously, what's your experience in California? And obviously your company, I don't think you have any experience in California. How about the management team? Any experience in California?
Yeah, I would say, you know, we don't have any development experience in California per se. We do, you know, it seems like there's just maybe some concern around just from the, you know, permitting, regulatory environment in California, things like that lead to some, hey, this place operates a little bit differently than other states.
We're an example for the world. Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a great point. I think it's valid. You know, we do work with a group called All For Permitting, which is based here in Sacramento, that has done RNG work, and they're very experienced in the permitting and regulatory environment in California. So we would use them most likely. on this project.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Scott, did you have a question?
Oh, one was a California question, because that seems to be the issue.
Yeah.
I noticed on your last slide, I just made a note that says construction can begin immediately. And what exactly are we talking about? Because it's a couple of years to get to the pipe.
Yeah, we would do we can begin construction immediately once we have visibility into interconnection, both electric and natural gas. Those timelines are somewhat realistic. I think having an experienced and agile team that's entrepreneurial, we do have a good relationship. Hopefully we'd be able to push that timeline much shorter than that. But that's why, we would want some level of like a non-binding MOU in place to have time to kind of pursue that strategy and see if that's an option. I do know PG&E is interested in getting an RNG on their system. They have quite a bit of dairy RNG already on the system. They're looking for more. I think this would be a high priority for them from a natural gas perspective.
Okay. As far as the RINs go, what do you have to have in place? Because you said the RIN thing expires the end of the year.
The investment tax credit does expire at the end of the year, yeah.
Right, so how do you get credit if you can't really get started until you get all this other stuff figured out?
Well, there is, we heard earlier the safe harbor option about the equipment. That is an option where we would purchase equipment and take possession of it to qualify for the investment tax credit. There are some other things that we can do as well. The project would need to be completed in 3.5 years and show continuous construction during that time. We believe that we could move faster than that.
I guess this would go with everybody else. So the RINs are like, we don't know if that'll actually happen or not. So you'd be building this based on your own funding, and the RINs are, if we get them, that's great. If not, you're still going to build anyway. Is that correct, or is this dependent on the RINs?
Yeah, so I'll just clarify. So it's not dependent on I think what you mean is the investment tax credit, right? Not the RINs.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
I'm learning all this
It is
stuff
not
still, too.
contingent on the investment tax credit, no.
Okay. And if the investment tax credit came through, and this probably would you be willing to like put it in a holding place so that we know you're going to stick around until you
100%,
finish the
yeah.
project? And
Yeah, I mean, if we're monetizing the investment tax credit, the project is going to be pretty close to complete at that time before we are able to monetize the investment tax credit.
Right. And can you work with Energy 2001 since they already have the electrical connection and you don't have that?
Absolutely. We'll do whatever's in the best interest of the authority.
Right. I think that's all I have.
Okay.
Questions?
I did want to see if there's any public comment on this item before we come back to the board, unless you have other questions before I ask for public. Okay. Okay, anyone from the public who'd like to, unless Mr. Salmon, are you going to say something? Okay. I thought you were going to. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair and other distinguished members of the board. I guess I want to address the elephant in the room when everybody's talking about one project.
Can you start with your name, please?
Jim Beer.
Thank you.
With Amoresco. The elephant in the room, that Amoresco is the only one that has ever done a project in California and the only one that's interconnected with PG&E. I think California is a unique animal. It's not for the faint of heart. For people that have not worked in California or permitted a project or worked with PG&E, it was an eye-opener. This is going to cost more than what somebody that hasn't built one before, and it's going to take more time. We've learned that because we've been dealing with PG&E and dealing with CEQA permits and air permits in the state of California since 2009. That was our first operational plant. We're the largest landfill gas developer in the state of California. We have 10 operating landfill gas to electric plants. We have under contract 3 landfill gas to RNG projects. I am not aware that G2 and some of the landfills that are close that were mentioned earlier is even under contract yet. So we are by far the most qualified firm to be able to build a plant. I've been able to work with Laura Rasmussen for well over probably close to 2 decades. So I would be willing to work with Laura. I think she brings a lot of credibility to the project. She has a lot of infrastructure that I think would benefit the RNG project. Our project at Keller Canyon, just right down the road in Pittsburgh, California, has a very similar structure. We have an existing landfill gas to electric plant that we will continue to run off of landfill gas, and then that will power our RNG plant. It's about twice the size of the one here, but we're developing, we have 6 landfill gas to RNG projects throughout the country. A lot of them about the same size as what you have here, 2,200, 2,500 CFM. And we're currently developing under contract, and I want to make that distinction, under contract with permits and with development agreements in place. So we have 9 other ones that we're building across the United States. We have an army of infrastructure here already built with employees. We have over 100 employees in the state of California. We have over 350 dedicated engineers, operators that are solely dedicated to doing landfill gas, biogas projects. We try to do as much as we can in-house, which we think that we can control the costs and the timing. And again, I think it's a little naive to think that you can build a project in California in 18 months or 15 months, what was mentioned before. So I just want to make sure, in part with you, one last thing, that these are long contracts, they're complicated contracts, and you need to hire the most experienced person, the most qualified person to partner with. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
What was the name of your company?
Amoresco.
Is there a reason, did you ask to make a presentation also on the agenda, or?
I
I'm
did
just-
not, nope.
Oh, okay, okay. How come? I'm just curious. I mean, I appreciate your public comment.
Yeah.
Appreciate your comments. Why, if you want to be considered, why did you not know about it until it was too late for the agenda, or?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I just was wondering, do you have other projects that are in the pipeline? What would you be ready right away to do a project? And if not, do you know what the timeline might be for completing a project here?
Absolutely, we would be ready to start the project. We have the California engineers, we have the California permitting agencies that we've dealt with. One of the most important things, I think, was we have a very long-standing relationship with PG&E. The former president of PG&E sits on the board of Amoresco. We're publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange. So we have the working capital cash on hand that we would start this project. We wouldn't have to wait for lending to take place, so we would start the project on our own nickel, and we're willing to do that today.
Other questions? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bringing it back to the board. I know this is an information item, but does staff need some direction on what next steps might be? Or-
We would take direction if offered, but we're not seeking direction on the next
Okay.
steps right now.
Okay, yes.
Well, I wonder how many other companies are out there.
Well, I think that,
Learning a lot tonight.
yeah.
So one of the things that, I'm personally, just kind of where I'm sitting at, I like Energy 2001, what they've done with our landfill. I think that electrical connection, fantastic. I liked what you were saying, Laura, about you want to continue that and you could work with this other stuff and supply our plant. And I would love to hear more, learn more about that, because I think that's what you're saying sounds really good. Going to renewable natural gas, that's really important. We have a huge opportunity here. It seems like we ought to do this if we can, and we'll make money on it, and they'll make money on it, and that's a win-win for everybody. One thing that, I'm gonna go back to my notes. Laura, you had mentioned something, and I think, Mr. Sandman, you'll have to help us on this. If we go out to RFP, this is a bigger process. If Energy 2001 partners with somebody, can we do a sole source agreement and get it going sooner? That's the part she mentioned something like that, and I want to make sure, because if that's the case, that's a interesting angle.
Thanks, Director Alford. Yeah, Government code provides wide berth to this agency and other public agencies in California on energy services contracts of this type involving alternative fuels. You're not subject to the typical public contract code provisions, for example. A binding contract would have to be put before your board at a regularly scheduled meeting with a public hearing with at least 2 weeks public notice. So that's kind of the where you're at. There was a number of findings, very statutorily directed findings you need to make to support a process where you did not go out to an RFP. Part of the latitude that's provided to you is to go to an RFP process or some type of competitive process should you wish to craft one and put that on the street. So you have more latitude, frankly, in this space than you do in other areas. I can get into more detail if you want, but that's basic.
It seems like this has happened really fast, at least from my perspective. So this is really new and very, very interesting. I'm interested in us pursuing this somehow. I'd be interested in your comments too, what you guys think about this.
Well, I guess the question is, we're on a short time frame here if we're interested in the tax credits. If that's something that we don't think we can get there, then okay, but if we're interested in it, then go ahead.
And that's a value, right? So that is a value, and we could, and we could ask staff to come back with a recommendation, right? To come back with should we go out to an RFP? Does it make sense to consider a sole source and get some type of get some proposals? I know there was an ask for a non-binding MOU, and I don't know how that affects the work and your proposal, but I think that means that you would get information from our staff to make a bigger proposal. And so that could be something that you do with several of these companies and then bring up some recommendations. And I don't know how solid the tax credit is, right? Like, it sounds like it's gonna end by the end of the year. We're almost it's August, right? The likelihood is really fast, and we're talking a really expensive plant that I wanna make sure that we're comfortable with who we move forward with.
Yeah.
I think that's really important to us, right? We've already had some challenges. We've already bonded $120 million for this facility, right? And got a lot going on. And to take on another project, I want to make sure we're doing it thoughtfully as well. That's really important, I think. So I love the idea that there's a tax credit, but I don't want it to be the sole reason we move forward. I want to make sure we move forward thoughtfully.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
How do I say this? I feel like the agency has a history of maybe not doing RFPs or letting relationships go for a long, long time. But I also think another option would be something short of an RFP that's maybe a request for qualifications or something that's leaves the door open for people to approach us, but not in such a protracted way. And as I think I heard our attorney mention, we have a lot of latitude here in terms of who we were to contract to, but I think something that had a bit of process to it, maybe without, throwing ourselves into an RFP, for those of us who were around for the MRF operational RFP, that was, we went out and hired a consultant for $500,000 or something who then spent 6 or 8 months developing the RFP. It could get really kind of crazy. So.
Can I ask, you're going to say something, Rob, and then I'll ask a question about RFP and what it would, do we have to go with a contractor that's going to develop it in order to do it?
Maybe I'll let you ask your question first to make sure. Was that a question?
Well, that is a question, right? Because we did hire a consultant to help us go through the process to build the RFP, and it did take a long time.
If I could, there's no requirement certainly that your board hire or direct staff to hire a consultant to do any type of specifications or anything like that. You have the ability, as I pointed out, the actual award of a contract has to be at a regularly scheduled meeting. You do have the latitude, should you choose to wish to provide further direction on a solicitation process of some type, You could do that at a special meeting, for example, get some information in and direct staff to do that. You can shorten the time frame. Director Halden, as you noted, there's no requirement to do a formal RFP process with the things that we've typically done in the past. You can shorten it considerably.
So-
Narrow into an RFQ or other solicitation.
So we have options, but then let me go back to staff who have done this and experienced all sorts of projects. What makes most sense, right? Like, I want to do what makes most sense, and we have flexibility, but I don't, do you think it makes sense to do an RFP and that you guys can write that is detailed enough to get what we need? Or should we do more of an RFQ? Or, so any thoughts that you have? Because, we're not the experts. We just know that we need to vet the process. I feel like we need to vet the process or vet the proposals.
Yeah,
Look at that, I'm throwing it back at
Right.
you, because we're not the experts.
And honestly, I wouldn't mind if my tag had a voice on it too, or some of our tag members, because I'm not technical on this, and I wouldn't mind our jurisdictions just having a little bit of input or feedback or something at some point in this process before we make a decision down the road. But just thought I'd throw that out there too. You got the answer for us?
Yes, I would say that an RFP developed in-house in coordination with the tag as quickly as possible with a shortened time frame would be what I would recommend at this time.
And let me ask the question of the sort of tax credit, right? Because there's the dangling of the tax credit, which is, could be $5 million.
That's
And
cool.
what's the cost of a project? What did we hear the cost of the project was? Something, it could be what, 40 million, or is it more? 200 million?
Not for us.
No, I know, but for whomever it is who's building it, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot, and it would be great to have those tax credits, but I want to make sure we're doing our due diligence. I think that's my biggest concern. And there could be a shortened process, and maybe you feel comfortable saying, hey, let's do a shortened process. But I don't know if I'm hearing that from you.
I think I would advise against rushing in just to get the tax credits, since it is already mid-August. I would advise using caution and getting as many interested parties to come to us, and obviously work through with all the experts on the tag to meet what we're looking for, and the tax credit would be great, but I just wouldn't want to rush into it.
How long do you expect, if you were to do kind of a condensed timeline, like what is a reasonable amount of time in general for something like that?
Total time of 4 to 6 months.
Okay.
And if you're talking compressed, then do you really have to compress it because you're not going to hit,
Right, you're not.
you're not going to hit tax
That
credit,
way.
right? So,
Okay. So tax credits you can get before you start construction, or you can get promised for it, right?
I'm not an expert on the tax credits. I know some people here are. I was told.
Can we get the tax credit when we don't know who's doing it yet? That's what I'm asking.
I
We're,
No,
we
I don't
don't.
think
okay,
so.
I'm just asking,
You
okay.
have to be in contract with
Yeah.
somebody.
they're all
Yeah.
shaking their heads.
I don't-
Okay, we got the experts in the room.
We have to be in contract with somebody to get that.
Okay, the other thing is we have 3 companies here that do RNG stuff. And is that pretty much it? Or is there like 20 of them out there? And can we work with any of these people to help us in the process? I'm sure they've filled out some of these things before. Laura seems to know some stuff about this. Can she be part of it? I mean, I have no idea.
I would rather have each one be vetted separately without influence, and I don't mean that as
We
a
have
criticism.
we have a partnership we want.
I just
Yes,
wanted
no,
to
I-
say on your comment of how many people, there are literally dozens of people out there who do this sort of thing. I've only pointed out that in my talking with lots of people, I've only found one that has a plant in California and only one other one that had a plant in New York that has high specifications as well. And that those, you know, for me, someone who's done something like that, it's important. But that's all I'm saying.
Right.
But there's lots of them out there.
Well,
for
I
sure.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, I really do, but I still would, I'm gonna repeat what I just said, that if we're gonna do this process, whether it's shortened or not, I would rather have it, not that you wouldn't have any input because you would be the partner, but I wanna avoid influence and picking favorites or whatever, because I don't know anything about the other companies, and I'm happy, you know, I appreciated the presentations and want to learn. I will say, and this is not a signal one way or the other, honestly, but Red Tail met with me twice, and they made the effort to come and meet with me twice, and so I've learned a lot more about their company. I haven't heard boo from anybody else. That doesn't mean that that's my favorite. I'm just saying that I would, if we're gonna do the process, whether we get the credits or not, I would really rather have Laura not be an influencer because she's already made a decision about who she wants. And that's not a criticism. I would say that if it was anybody. I just met you tonight. I don't even know you, so it's not a criticism. I just want staff and the tag to do the vetting, and then we can make a decision, if that makes sense.
Okay, any other thoughts?
Directors, if I may, from an operational standpoint, my team does agree with Scott because we have been informed by Placer County APCD that the federal EPA will be determining whether or not this region meets attainment or non-attainment goals, and it's hinging on this year, and wildfires are not exempt. So it could have widespread cost implications whether or not the region is attainable versus not attainable, and us as the landowner of a large a stationary source of emissions, we would be facing some of those implications. So from an operational standpoint, I would think time is on our side. Just wanted to add that bit.
I didn't understand what you just said.
So the Fed EPA is basically determining whether or not regions are attainment or non-attainment.
And so we need to do
And
it soon, or I'm not sure.
It's hinging on this year, is from our understanding. And
What is-
wildfires.
But you're saying take our time
Yes,
on this
because
process.
this is
because-
something that's an unknown and will impact us if it comes to pass as a large stationary emissions generator, so.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments or thoughts?
So obviously, we want to move forward with trying to get an RNG, right? That makes sense.
Yes.
I think we agree to that. Question is next steps. Are we,
So do we want staff to go evaluate with the tag what the best process would be? Whether it would be going out for a full RFP or whether it would be an RFQ? Do we want the tag to meet and then they determine that? Or are we saying we want to do an RFP and take our time and we want?
well, I heard from Scott, which he thinks it should be an RFP.
Yeah,
Which gives time to vet. And there are more than, as Laura just said, there's more than just 3 players. There's a lot of players. So,
I think,
if we're gonna open it up, we open it up.
I mean, I want to see us work with the tag. You know, I'm fine doing an RFP, but that doesn't mean we're locking ourselves into a 3-year process to do an RFP.
Right.
It could be 3 months. It could be 2 months. It doesn't have
Be
to
great if we
be,
could shorten
it doesn't
It
have
would
to
be
be
great if we
a
could.
crazy, long process.
We can
that
be
we've been-
diligent, but let's not drag our feet.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, saying RFP does not mean we're talking about 2026, all right? It- You know, it's 2024.
ChatGPT can write one in like 30 seconds.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you good then? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Anything else on this item?
And thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for being
for
here,
coming.
appreciate
We
it.
appreciate
Sharing
it.
your expertise. It's
Wow, we have a
actually
lot more
really
to go.
exciting.
I know.
It's actually really exciting to think that we
I know
can do
that took
this.
a long time.
Okay, moving on to item 6E, the MRF Operator Quarterly Report.
Well, Andrea, that was only 2.5 hours.
I
Sorry.
have to be really quick, huh? Good evening. In the second quarter, we have continued to operate around the construction project. The new C&D facility keeps processing MSW. We keep making progress on the ramp-up of the new processing, more tonnages on a daily basis, and we had increased to above 18% our recovery rates. We're still working to meet our contractual goals, but it's a good ramp-up for a new facility. The facility as whole, including the MSW, C&D, and compost, has processed in quarter number 2 almost 100,000 tons of material. And on regards of the SB 1383 compliance, we have sold year-to-date 11,000 tons out of the 12,000 tons needed to meet the minimum compliance. And if the board has any questions?
Okay, any questions from the board?
I didn't have any.
Touching that.
Yeah, I'm looking.
I know, it took me a second to find it too.
What, is there a page for?
Yeah, starts on page 7.
Okay. Can I just, really quick, no, I'll just say it again, it's fine. No, I don't have any questions for you, thank you. Appreciate it.
Phil, anything? No? Okay, then
Page 7.
we'll move on to 6F, the landfill operator quarterly report.
Oh,
Your board has a report for the landfill. The operations continue to be successful in the landfill, and we are still pending for approval, but
Oh,
our
I see.
compactor rates for Q2 also like we will meet or exceed the minimum compactor rates.
Okay, questions or comments?
Nope, I didn't have any.
I just, well, okay. I have a little question on item 6G.
We're not there yet, though.
I know we're not
Oh.
there, but we used to get, Andrea used to do these updates, and I'm just wondering, is Andrea gonna come back, or is it just gonna be Will? Okay, so if I have questions for Andrea, do I ask you? Or do I get her now? Well, I get her.
That is up to your director's choice.
Yeah, you could just
What's
ask her to.
You can ask her not to leave yet.
Okay, yeah, don't leave the room.
No, I will
Just-
not.
yeah,
I will
okay,
wait until
okay.
him,
'Cause
yeah.
I might
Leave the
have some
room.
questions for you. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. All right, moving to 6G, facility projects update with Will.
Good evening, Chairwoman Landon, Board of Directors. At FCC's request, the critical path that they provided on July 11th is provided to you in your packet. In regards to Phase 1 regarding C&D, the new C&D facility, and the green waste aerated static pile projects. As you have heard, C&D is processing MSW as we move through the next phases. Construction of the green waste aerated static piles look to be completed this month with a tentative completion date of Friday, testing the VFDs and all the system in its glory. So very excited to see that. Moving to Phase 2, the maintenance building and ADA improvements. ADA improvements are still on hold pending some change orders with FCC and their contractors that they submitted to FCC. The new maintenance building is progressing. It is substantially complete besides fire alarms and fire sprinklers, which is anticipated to wrap up sometime this month. Moving to Phase 3A, the MRF itself. Van Dyke continues to install new equipment, and to date has had 2 density separators installed, several optical sorters, 2 of the large trommels, and two of the tipping pad feed lines, in addition to associated steel and concrete infrastructure. And if your board would like a tour of that, please, we'd be happy to show you, me, Emily, I'm sure. So we'd be welcome to show you that new equipment. Moving to Phase 3B, FCC has received notification of approval of some of the Phase 3B permits from the Placer County Building Department and are currently awaiting those to move forward for construction. The Module 6 liner project has resumed construction. Gravel import is complete with laying wrapping up. A substantial completion date is in the month of October. And of note, in last month, the Water Board per Main Division did have a site inspection with Ryan, and we're pleased with what they saw. So definitely looking forward to wrapping up that very large project in the near future. And then the last project on file, Biofiltro, we are still going through the pilot study, and there's no significant updates at this time. With that, I turn it back to your board for any questions you may have.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments?
No, thanks, Will.
I still want to come out and see it. I keep forgetting to call you guys, but is there still something to see out there?
For Module 6 or the
Yeah.
MRF or all the above?
The lining area.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'd love to see that. And
You can slide down into the rocks.
The slide timeframe is closing fast.
I
so
know.
Get in while you can.
I don't think it'd be very comfortable now.
But it is pretty cool to see how big that thing is. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I remember
I'd like to see
driving by
that
when it
too.
was just pretty much liner, but I kind of wanted to see.
When you go down to the bottom, you're like, wow, this is a really big hole.
Okay, other questions?
No.
Yes.
Could I ask Andrea to come up and answer a question? So I remember vividly traveling to Houston and Dallas and meeting you and the team, and we were skeptical that we could get things done here on time, but you guys assured us we could. And I'm sitting here looking at a 5-month delay, and I'd like a simple answer as to why. I thought you'd get it done.
It's not a simple answer. There were a combination of things. One of the main things was that the winter was really wet. There was a lot of raining days, so it took us longer to get the C&D canopy and the C&D equipment going on. And that delayed the whole entire thing, because until we couldn't treat the MSW in the new C&D facility, we will not be able to shut down this facility and keep the work in here.
Yep.
That being said, we're doing everything that is in our power to speed up the process as much as possible.
Okay. So, again, during our trip to Texas, you guys presented a can-do, we'll get it done posture to us, because you've done it in so many other places. And so it's disappointing to me. And frankly, I hear the people talking about the other things, get it done, no excuse people. And that's what I felt like you gave us. And now this is hugely disappointing to me, because I was a big supporter of you guys, and I thought you were the right choice. And it's disappointing because I don't think you've delivered what we thought we were getting with you guys, and the level of expertise around the world in places far more difficult than California, or so we were told. So I just wanted to express that because it's very frustrating to me personally, having spent time with you and your team in Dallas and Houston. And I know some of the board members weren't here for that, and I just want to make sure that was expressed. So, thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 7A, minutes of the board meeting, or I guess consent agenda, item 7. Is there anything that anyone wants to pull off the consent agenda?
No, I move approval of consent.
Anyone in the public that needs to pull anything? Okay. Director Andriotta motioned,
I'll second.
and Director Alvord seconded. Roll call vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay, item 8A, UC Davis Site Access Agreement.
Thank you, Chair. Tonight, staff are recommending that your board authorize the chair to sign a site use agreement with UC Davis for access to the Western Regional Sanitary Landfill for the purposes of conducting a research project related to methane emissions measurement technologies. So keeping with the landfill gas theme that we've got on tonight's meeting, this is a really exciting opportunity. Staff were approached by a associate professor researcher from UC Davis. In fact, he's here this evening. Dr. Ramin Yazdani is in the audience. And I've had the pleasure of knowing Dr. Yazdani for many years and followed some of his work at UC Davis. It's really exciting, the stuff that he's done in the solid waste sphere. So to have him reach out to our site and ask that the landfill be included in his research project was actually kind of a nice pat on the back for us. But long and short, what the research project would be is to look at different ways for measuring, monitoring, and tracking the emissions of methane into the atmosphere. And this is something that the US EPA and CARB is very interested in, and getting a much better handle on the amount of emissions of methane from landfills getting into the atmosphere and figuring out ways to realistically measure those and then obviously mitigate those. So this idea of being able to evaluate this site with a broader range of technologies to really understand how this site operates can only be of benefit to this agency. From my perspective, I think the staff's perspective is it puts us in a position when the inevitable regulations do come from the EPA and CARB, is we possibly have an opportunity to help influence those and be ahead of the curve. So really a very exciting opportunity to continue to be viewed very favorably in the solid waste industry and to work with higher institutions of higher learning and get some benefits at our site on how to be an even better, well-run operation. One of the exciting pieces that's not included in the item here tonight is Dr. Yazdani did put us in contact with an entity that we'll bring back as a separate action at a separate meeting for your board, but to improve the gas collection system actually on the gas wellhead so that those would adjust automatically within a set parameters to really optimize the flows from the landfill and do so we're minimizing emissions, maximizing gas control, and really ensuring that we're not in situations where we're overpulling or underpulling on the landfill. So really, some very exciting opportunities here. So I'll leave it at that, turn it back to your board. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'm sure Dr. Yazdani would be able to answer questions as well.
Great, very exciting. Any questions or comments?
Just one thing, which I think I read the other day when I was reading through the packet, and it was something about, okay, we're not gonna, CARB's not gonna come after us based on what we found out. That always really concerns me because I don't like regulators very much, especially when they fine you.
Right.
So I think that was my understanding. I think I read that somewhere, right?
That is correct, and that was one of our concerns as well, Director Gore, is that would we be putting ourselves at risk with the regulators by being a part of this process? And in discussing it with CARB, that's not how they're going to be using this data for enforcement reasons. If there are issues that would be compliance related, it would be brought to our attention so we could help resolve those. But the data would not be used against us.
Thank you. And then just a follow-up question. So this research project that you have, then you're going to have students coming out and working with you. I would love to just hear. I think it's an awesome opportunity. And since you sat for
I know.
3 hours, I'd love
We'd like to hear from you, yeah.
Make it worth your while.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. It was well worth it because I learned a lot what's going on here, and it helps me because part of this research project is to better understand your operation, and then things that affects emissions we can actually measure. So there are 3 projects that are involved. I have 2 CARB projects, California Air Resources Board, and then EPA. We had actually 5 proposals that got funded throughout the U.S. that we got one of those funded, and it's I have UC Berkeley as a partner and University of Delaware as well, which I've worked with for a number of years. But the main, what we're going to be doing here is basically take some measurements, install some instruments that can continuously monitor emissions, and then there's also be aerial surveys where aircrafts will go around the landfill and then they can quantify emissions. And ultimately what we want to develop is a technique where you can actually identify where the sources are and then notify the landfill so that could go and fix it. And that would be the way we're going to reduce greenhouse gas emission. And I think CARB is interested in developing drone methods. So we're going to be doing some drone measurements and then underground measurements, flux chamber measurements, as well as aerial, and then try to see how accurately we can estimate different methods. And also EPA is also interested in developing, one of the things we're doing is developing a complex model, which UC Berkeley is working on, and creating a model of the landfill and then be able to run scenarios that you wouldn't be able to normally do unless you do many tests on site. So through computer modeling, as well as actual measurements, we can kind of tune the models. And so it's very exciting. I really like this landfill because, you know, it's not a very large landfill, but it's large enough and it has many different activities that will help us understand how landfills in different regions operate. We actually have like 3 landfills that we're going to be studying. This is one of the ones that we picked. And then I work with another company who's going to be doing, installing some fence monitoring, and then they're going to be doing 10 more landfills for California. So there'll be a total of 13 landfills studied over 2 years to develop a better understanding of how we can reduce the emissions. So thank you for accepting our offer to use your landfill as a lab. I appreciate that, and thanks to the staff and everyone else who supported us. Any other
Great,
questions?
thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. That's so cool. Yeah. It's
All right,
great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the public? Okay, any other comments from board members? Yes.
One of the things I would just want to propose, if you guys are open to it, we have the reports from directors at the very beginning of our meeting. And I never think of anything, but sometimes I can think of it at the end. I was wondering, is it possible, would you guys be okay if we move that to the end of our agenda standing so that we might have
I'm
more
fine
to
with
say
that.
possibly? I don't have anything tonight, but.
Sorry,
That's fine.
did we do a?
No, we have to do a vote on this
Yeah,
item, right?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry. I thought you were
Yeah.
going
Yeah,
somewhere
yeah.
with this.
Going into the upcoming,
He jumped to the end, yeah.
just seeing if you
How
guys are all
about if I
paying
move
attention.
approval of the,
Public.
the site use agreement
With you.
with UC Davis
Yeah.
for the research
I
project?
I second.
Okay, great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions?
No.
Okay, great, thank you. Now, moving on, we finished closed session, so we will move on to item 10, upcoming agenda items and potential comments from Director Alvord regarding the order.
Yeah, what I said.
So you want to,
I
you
am
want to
fine with
move?
that.
I was thinking, at the very beginning, we always
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
reports from directors. We never say anything.
Yeah.
You guys be okay if we put it at the end?
Of course.
Yeah. I'm good with
And then I have one tiny little reminder. Scott, you were not here yet when I asked for this, so you probably didn't even know it. And this is low priority because you guys have so much to do. But I want to remind you that could we, on the agenda packet, the page numbers are great, but it would really be helpful if, so you've got them numbered here, could we either number them here too? So item number 1 or item number 2, whatever. So they're Roman numeral or numeric number. No, I get that, but when you're looking at it, you know, it's hard to follow here. And so I'd have to look here, or have to look here. It's just, if you've got them numbered on the agenda, if we could just Roman numeral them or numeric, whatever, item 1, 2, 3. I know that's a lame
No, not at
request,
all.
but
we're
it's just
happy
hard
do
to
that.
follow.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, you know, that.
Nope, don't
I
apologize.
misunderstood what you had asked for last meeting, so
Oh.
we did put that header item on there, that we thought that that's what you had referred to.
Okay, I
But
gotcha.
we're happy to
gotcha.
put that on the.
I thought that was new. Yeah, no, that's very thoughtful, and I really appreciate it. What would make it easier is if you just, you know.
Right on the first page. so you
Yes,
know,
and
you
then
got
just
it.
each thing, because I'm looking here, and then sometimes the way you guys have them listed, I could read the report, but it's just a little hard to follow unless I'm looking at different places, so. It just helped my simple brain follow you.
Happy to make that change.
Okay,
Thank
and then
you.
Director Albert had one more comment.
I just wanted to bring up that we had tabled a discussion about restructuring our board at some time in the future. We had tabled it till we got a new director in place here, or a manager, GM. And I just wanted to bring that up. I'd like to get that back on the agenda about talking about restructuring our board down the road.
And I would like to hold off a little bit, based on what we just added to staff to do an RFP. I mean, and it's up to you all. I'm open to still having the conversation, but we've just now asked them to do another huge lift.
Yeah.
Oh, but we lifted a whole bunch before. We just need to go through with it. So I'm only on the board till the end of the year. Maybe we want to keep kicking the can. I don't know. I just feel like we want to do something about this at some point. But
Well, I agree with Bonnie. I mean, we talked about this before. I actually don't think it's a high priority to change the nature of the board. But if we agree to talk about it.
Talk to yours.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we want to talk too much about this tonight since
Yeah.
it's not on the
That's true.
agenda. I would like to see it come back. I do get that we got a lot of priorities. I think frankly, we've made this thing way too complicated.
Yep, I agree.
And maybe we could have just a little discussion about going back to a simple idea, which I think everybody probably could support after we've gone round and round and round. But I do think we need to bring it back because our biggest customer is not happy, so we have to deal with that. Okay.
I don't think that's gonna change the nature of what our biggest customer is going to do, though.
Okay, all right, well, I think we just have to, you know, I don't want to go much further because I think we're talking about things that aren't on the agenda, so.
Okay, so we'll just
But
say.
bottom line, I
future
do think we need to have a
conversation
discussion, even if it's a no, you know, so. okay.
Okay, so is anyone vehemently opposed? Is there a timeline? Are you just saying sometime in the next few months?
Well, I mean, we'd kind of gotten to the point where we were making a decision, and then the thing was, let's kick it down and worry about after we get a new guy here. And so now we have a new guy here, so I just want to bring it back so we can finish the conversation. So
Okay,
I don't know if there's a lot of homework on it, just bring it back and let's talk about it again.
you're good with?
Well, I mean, just in fairness, we talked about this, we decided that we would wait until we had our general manager on board. I would like to talk about it. It doesn't have to be a 2-hour meeting. Staff doesn't even have to do anything. Just put it
on the
on
agenda.
for discussion,
Yeah.
so we don't have too much discussion.
That sounds fair.
That's-
I'm
that's
good with
fair
that.
enough. That's
That
fair.
I don't want to
works.
give you guys more.
Fair enough.
Sounds good.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay, and with that,
We are
we are adjourned.
adjourned. Yay. Thank you, Chair.